You're watching Rogers TV North Durham, Kawartha.
Welcome to Uxbridge Scugog Life. I'm your host, Jackie Hermans. So, have you found your mittens yet? Your hat yet? It's definitely getting chillier. But I have been so impressed with this fall. We have certainly had so many amazing days of sunshine and warmer weather that have definitely brightened my spirits. So I hope when those days happen, you are just soaking those up. So today on the show, we are going to be talking to the chief of Uxbridge Hospital, and that is Carly Jensen. And we're talking about a wait list tracker. Yes. Have you waited in Emerge for 4, 5, 6 hours? Well, you know what? You can find out where the shortest wait time is, and we'll be talking to Carly about that. We'll also be talking to CMHA, and CMHA will be discussing the mental health advance directives. So make sure you keep on watching. We'll be right back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough, and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
Hi, I'm Constable Gerald Rice, Durham Regional Police Service. Tune into Rogers Cable 10 to watch me on Seniors Talk with DRPS, where we'll talk about all kinds of amazing information and community programs for you, our seniors in Durham Region.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. So with me on the show, we have Carly Jensen, who's the chief of Uxbridge Hospital, and we're talking about a wait list tracker. So this has to do with the emergency room. And I have to tell you, Carly, first of all, thanks for being on the show.
Of course.
I understand that this tracker that we're going to be talking about, which tells you how many people are waiting to get in, and how many people are already being seen. I understand it's been around for 2-3 years. I had no idea.
Yeah, so we actually launched it several years ago because we know that, when people wait, the wait is annoying, but the not knowing how long the wait is going to be is sort of probably the most annoying part around it. And if you ask an emerge nurse, what's the most frustrating question they get is, how long is the wait going to be? So
Right.
we thought, let's create, there's technology out there to help us here because it can predict based on flow and how quickly the physician is working, how quickly people can get through. So it can predict your wait when you show up. So this wait time clocker is online, but it's also sitting in our waiting room. So when you're sitting there waiting, you kind of get a bit of a sense as to when you might be seen. It also tells you who's in the department. Like there are 16 people waiting to be seen versus 5 people waiting to be seen. How many are actually being seen at the time right at that moment of time?
Does it say, so are you saying that it also says the number of doctors that are available?
No, unfortunately, okay. I wish it did. Simply because, our tracker will say, there are this many people waiting and this is your anticipated wait. But if you don't look at the number of people waiting versus the time, you might say, oh goodness, Uxbridge looks great. There's only 10 people there, whereas Oshawa has 65. But what you don't realize is Oshawa probably has 5 or 6 doctors working, and Uxbridge generally only has 1 physician in at a time. And that piece is missing, but it is reflected in the wait time, right? So if you have another hospital with a larger volume of patients, but the wait time is the same or less, believe that, because it's going to reflect how quickly their throughput is based on the number of physicians working.
Okay, great. Now, what type of feedback have you been getting since you launched it?
Really good feedback. People like to know what to expect when they show up. The only negative that comes up from time to time, so it is important for people to understand this, is it is a guess. It is a prediction. It is not a crystal ball. It is not a guarantee. And so sometimes what might happen is someone will show up because the wait time clock looks great. There's only a 1 hour wait. And then an ambulance shows up with a very sick person, and that emerge doc is now going to be occupied with that one patient, maybe for an hour or two. Again, you have one doctor. So if I have a very sick patient, I'm going to be spending my time with that person. So all of a sudden the wait time clock might suddenly jump and say, now the wait is 5 hours. And so, that can sometimes get people upset if they don't know what's going on. Wait, I got here and I was told it was only going to be a 1 hour wait, and now it says 5 hours. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's going to be an issue like that.
Okay, gotcha. Now, I was recently in Emerge at, I guess it was at Uxbridge when my daughter had COVID, because we didn't know it was COVID, but she had migraines so intense that nothing was helping her. And so we went into Emerge. We were probably there for 6 hours, I think. It was a really long time. So I understand. Would you be able to share with us when to go to Emerge, when not to go to Emerge? What are some alternatives?
Sure, absolutely. So right now, like every Emerge department, every hospital across the country really is struggling with huge volumes. And, a few years ago, we probably had the bandwidth to call in extra staff. We just don't have that anymore. So our ability to manage these surges is very challenging. So this is a great question, because there is opportunities to be seen outside of the emergency department. So one of the big ones is if you have like a viral or an infection, cough, cold, you don't know if it's viral or bacterial. Remember your family doctors and walk-in clinics. There's lots of virtual online options now as well. And then there's also the COVID assessment centers, and they're being rebranded as cough and cold assessment centers. So there's one in Prince Albert, just outside of Port Perry. There's one at Markham Stouffville Hospital. I'm sure they have them at Lake Ridge Health, et cetera. And so if you just sort of Googled cough and cold or COVID assessment centers, you can actually be assessed with a viral illness there. You don't need to go to the emergency department if you have a cough or cold. And even if you're worried that it's COVID, because in general, these viral infections run their course and you're fine at the end of it. You just have to sort of ride it out with flu as rest, chicken noodle soup, the same things your mom did with you that my mom did with me, that will get you through these viral infections. Only infrequently you have to seek medical care, and that's when we think there's a secondary infection.
So at these assessment centers, there's no treatment that happens. Is that correct? It's just simply assessment.
Well, it's an assessment, and then if needed, they would give you a prescription, right? So let's say you came in and you had a flare of your asthma because you've caught some sort of virus. Well, they would give you a prescription for Ventolin or whatever prescription puffer that you need. If you needed antibiotics, they would give you a prescription for that as well. But yeah, they don't have oxygen. They don't have the ability to start an IV and things like that. But they have all the diagnostics. We have the rapid COVID tests. We have the rapid strep tests. We have the ability to check ears for ear infections, a stethoscope to listen for pneumonia, an oxygen probe to check for signs of pneumonia. So you can get a very thorough assessment at these sites.
And at those sites, is it still the same process as it was before? You go online to book an appointment, you have to answer survey questions?
Yeah, except the very first question is, do you want a COVID swab? Because some people still just want a COVID swab, or do you want an assessment? So if you have a cough or cold and you want to see a physician, just tick off the box that you want a physician. Previously, those online pull downs would not let you book unless you were considered high risk, right? They were trying to weed out the people, but now anybody can click that they want a physician assessment. And ideally, yes, you book online. They do have a walk-in option at the Prince Albert Hall, just outside of Port Perry, between noon and 4 every day. It's more difficult to predict those walk-ins. So we do appreciate if people book an appointment, only because then we know what's going to be coming through the door and we can properly stop.
Okay, Carly, thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you on the show. We'll be right back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
When you're away from the gym, here's what CrossFit Oshawa does to keep fit. I want to show you a pull-up today because it's a functional movement that utilizes your entire body. If that's too challenging, scale it back to a jumping pull-up. Box jumps are great because they help you develop power in your lower body, and if you do enough reps, they elicit a great cardio response as well. We jump, land, and stand. To make that easier on your ankle, we can jump, land, stand, and step down. Burpees are everyone's favorite. They have a love-hate relationship because they're so great at developing that cardio response. In a burpee, chest goes to the floor, jump and clap overhead. Another one that I love to do is just getting out and running with the dog. I'll see you outside.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. So you know what? I still have Carly Jensen on the phone, chief of Uxbridge Hospital. And because we were just having a great conversation and there was so much more that I wanted to ask. So Carly, we do have fairly long wait times in the various Emerge. And so how can we help parents to determine whether they should be going to Emerge or not? And you know what, we can make that broader, but if we start with parents, so kids are getting fevers, whether it's a fever out of 103, 105, or whether they think they might have broken ankle, they're not positive. So can you give us some guidelines to determine if we should go?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll just focus on the cough cold stuff, only because to get into when to go for an ankle sprain is a little bit tougher to do in a short second.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so let's talk first about kids. So let's say I didn't go to medical school at all, and I just was on Facebook telling everybody what I know. If I said that it was viral, I'd be right 95% of the time. So you have to try and pick out that 1 in 20 that is a bacterial infection. So if you take nothing from this, just remember, if you just play the odds, most of the time it's a virus, which means you just need to ride it out. So riding it out, what does that mean? That means, fluids, rest, chicken noodle soup, flat ginger ale, the things that my mom did for me, I'm sure your mom did for you, they still stand true. And treating the fever with Tylenol or Advil. Okay, and I shouldn't use the brand names there, ibuprofen or acetaminophen, which, by the way, you do not need a prescription from your family doctor to get those. You can talk to the pharmacist because there's a shortage right now, right? You can talk to the pharmacist and they can help you figure out how you can get access to these. They have some behind the counter. So you're just treating that fever. So when to worry for a little one? So the main thing we look for is hydration status. So a child that bounces back when you give them the Advil or Tylenol and their fever goes down and they're bouncing all over the walls and you're like, oh my goodness, when can they go back to school? I am not worried about that kid. The kid that remains lethargic and dopey and not themselves, even after the Tylenol or Advil has kept down their temperature, then I worry about that child. I also worry if they're not urinating regularly. So a kid that isn't keeping up with their eating, that's okay. Most kids have a little bit of pudge, a little bit of money in the bank, I call it. And I'm okay if they're not eating very much, as long as they're drinking enough. And you want to target so that they have to urinate at least 3 times a day. So if they're dehydrated, they're going to be really lethargic. They won't be peeing very often. That's a red flag. That's the child that should be seen. The other thing to consider is you can start with a viral infection and then you can get a secondary infection. So if your child is getting better and then they suddenly get worse, that is a little bit of a red flag that, oh, well, maybe, this cough that was getting better is suddenly worse again. The fever that went away is suddenly back again. That's a clue. I think a bacteria has joined the party, and therefore we now need to consider antibiotics, and whether it's a chest infection or an ear infection. And that's something that you can bring your child into either your walk-in clinic, your cough and cold assessment center, or the emergency department.
Okay. So you know what? Since I've been coughing here and there, I might as well bring this up. So I had COVID during Thanksgiving. And since then, I just have this cough and my chest is burning still. And my throat is still sore and I cough all day. And so I haven't been able to get to a walk-in clinic. But now after talking to you, I think, okay, maybe I should just book an appointment at an assessment center. Is that something that you would, yeah?
Yeah, I could. So if it's just this like prolonged nagging cough, but you otherwise feel well, it's probably post-infectious cough, which existed far beyond COVID. Like pre-COVID, we would see this where some people get this, I call it the 100-day cough, not to make you too worried. But
I hope it's not 100 days.
I know, I'm full of good news, right? So sometimes this cough will last a really long time, as long as you're not getting a fever, and as long as it's not getting worse, then generally we would again say to sort of to ride it out. Now for adults, so I talked a little bit about kids, like what are the clues for adults, bacteria versus viral? So typically a bacteria likes to park itself in one place. So if you have pneumonia, you have a cough, you have fever, and maybe some chest pain where the pneumonia is. So that would be something for you to watch out for, Jackie, if you start to get chest pain in one area. So cough, fever, sometimes chest pain, sometimes shortness of breath. But you shouldn't have a sore throat with pneumonia, because pneumonia is in your lungs, right? Similarly, if you have strep throat, you should have a fever and a sore throat. You should have no cough. Absence of cough is one of the hallmark features of a strep throat. Sinusitis, also usually dental pain, sinal pain, lots of goopy discharge from here, but you really shouldn't have a sore throat when you've got a bacterial infection. So bacteria like to generally park in one place. Viruses, they party everywhere. They party in your throat, They party in your nose, they party in your chest, they party in your belly. So if you have sort of like symptoms all over, you probably have a virus. Whether it's COVID, influenza, RSV, whatever, it's probably a virus.
Okay, really excellent feedback there. That's absolutely fabulous. So I'm hoping with this information that we can get out to the communities, that we can start decreasing those waits in Emerge and just make sure the people who really need to see a doctor can get to see a doctor. And when it comes to broken ankles and wrists and things like that we're wondering, in that case, if you're worried about it, still go, or at least go to a family doctor.
Or that. So just like, and so I've got some examples here. So we actually do fast track people through, at least to get the imaging. So sometimes what will happen, someone will come, car door slammed on their finger, they're worried it's broken. Right from triage, they get their x-ray, and then unfortunately they sit in the waiting room known as purgatory, waiting. But because people can access their own results online now, they'll be able to see the x-ray has already been reported before they see the doctor, and they say, oh, it's not broken. And that's really all they wanted to know. And so, while I'm not encouraging people to leave without being seen, I would totally get it if they see that. And we've had that happen a few times where someone's like, you know what, I was worried it was broken. We've had the x-ray. I know we haven't seen the doctor, but I can see it's not broken because I looked up the result on the patient portal. I'll just follow up with my family doctor. That's fine. You're an adult. You can make your choices.
I didn't even know you could do that. So that's awesome. Yeah. Thank you again so much, Carly. It was wonderful to have you on the show. We'll be back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
Welcome to the set of Modern Business. I'm your host, Taylor Bursey, and have you ever wondered what the story behind the business is? On this show, we'll be talking to young, up-and-coming entrepreneurs, market makers, and philanthropists, hearing the story behind their career journey and getting their trade tip. Join me exclusively on Rogers TV for Modern Business with Taylor Bursey.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. So now on the show, I'm going to throw it over to Alec King from CMHA Durham, and he is going to be talking to Annika Dainty about the Mental Health Advanced Directive. So Alec, take it away.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm Alec King with the Canadian Mental Health Association Durham, and I'm here with Onika Dainty with our Recovery College Wellness Center. Onika is going to talk to us about Mental Health Advanced Directives. So, Onika, what is a Mental Health Advanced Directive?
It's actually one of the classes that I teach at the Recovery College Wellness Center.
Cool.
One of the most empowering for my students, I find. A Mental Health Advanced Directive is a document, a written document that someone who experiences mental illness can prepare prior to hospitalization so that the hospital and their healthcare professionals know exactly their wishes and their desires while they're having their mental health crisis.
Oh.
So it's similar to a crisis plan, but this crisis plan is for when, you know, when it happens and you have to be hospitalized, how exactly that can happen for you. One of the bigger things about the Mental Health Advanced Directive is the ability to have a medical proxy. Oh. Now, for me, it's my mom.
Sorry, what's a medical proxy? What do they do?
So a medical proxy is the person who takes a charge of your care while you're having a mental health crisis. Oh. So there could be several proxies, someone to take care of you while you're in the hospital, to express your wishes and wants and needs. For instance, if you are not comfortable with being secluded or you're not comfortable with being restrained, that would be in your Mental Health Advanced Directive document.
Right.
I just want to make note though, if the doctor does decide you are a danger to yourself or others, your Mental Health Advanced Directive can be overridden by that doctor.
But only in that kind of situation?
Only in that situation,
right.
And it would also be discussed with your medical proxy.
Oh, good. Great.
You could also have a proxy for an agent. The proxy is the proxy, but the agents, for instance, can be people who take care of your pets and plants, take care of your bills, emails, anything like that. So they take care of the things that you may need done while you are while you're in hospital. Some of the important reasons to have a medical advanced directive. Empowerment, that's the main reason. Yeah. When you make this document when you are well, you are telling people I am of sound mind and body, and I'm able to make decisions for myself when I'm unwell. And I'm also able to have someone advocate for me when I'm unwell and I have to be hospitalized. This document, it can be notarized by a lawyer, but as long as it is typed, written, and signed by yourself, the medical proxy, and witnesses, it is a legal document.
So you don't need to go through a lawyer or anything like that?
Absolutely not. There are two things actually you should know though. This document has to be accessible, so your medical team should have access to it through your proxy. Okay. You can give it to your workplace if you are so bold, and I would recommend that you give it to anyone that can come in contact with you while you're in crisis. Okay. In there, you can list things like your medication dosages, what you're currently taking, medications you do not want to take, medications that you are allergic to. You can also write in there just general allergies as well, how you prefer to be treated, as I said, in regards to things like restraints and seclusion. You also would have to write which hospital you'd like to be your home hospital or your hospital in your catchment area, so that the ambulance will know where to take you, because often ambulances will take you to the hospital closest to your home. Right. But if you request something different, that may happen.
Maybe where you have your care team in place.
Exactly, where your care team is in place. If you have an outpatient care team, you write their information there as well. Right. So your psychiatrist, your psychologist, if you have a social worker, any crisis lines that you contact, and your family doctor as well. So all of these items are in your document. Again, the value of having something like this is that empowerment piece.
That sounds fantastic, because then you know that when you're setting it up, you know that you're prepared and ready, and you have your network of people to support you. That's fantastic.
And I think one thing that's very important to know about the Medical Advanced Directive, the Mental Health Advanced Directive. There's so many different directives, but this one's for mental health. Yeah. You can also change it. You can change who your proxy is, and if you are updating your document, make sure when you update it, you update it with every single person that you've given the document to. You give them a hard copy, and you have the copy that is signed by your proxy and your witness in a safety deposit box or something of that nature. And also make sure that it's updated at any hospitals that you've previously stayed at, as well as the hospital that you would like to have your mental health crisis and have your care in that hospital. So it's a very important document. I value it very much. I think it's extremely relevant to people who are dealing with mental illness. It gives them a little bit of their power back, regardless of whether it can be overwritten or not, because that usually is a security and a safety issue.
And that's so important, that people know that when they're in crisis, they still have some kind of control and power, even in that kind of situation. That's fantastic. And I imagine it's really good for care teams as well to have that written out for them.
It's absolutely good for care teams. And at the end of it, you just want to make sure when you're writing, you're kind of finalizing everything, you just write that you are of sound mind and body, and you give your proxy permission, and then you sign it and make sure who has it needs it, and
that's fantastic.
Hopefully they never need it.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed they never need it.
Thank you so much for condensing a really complicated topic into 5 minutes. That was wonderful. So thank you so much. And Jackie, back to you.
Thanks, Alec. So we'll be right back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
Hi, I'm Sean Lackey, and this is Sold with Sean Lackey. You should check us out if you want to find out what's going on in the world of real estate. We'll have all sorts of guests to keep you in the loop on what's going on in this wonderful world.
Hey, what's good, everybody? I'm Karim Grant, a former professional football player. Do you want to know what current and former professional athletes are up to these days? Catch the Players Corner with Karim Grant exclusively on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. So that is a wrap of another very informative show, I must say. And if you want to check out the wait times and you live in the Uxbridge area, you can check out oakvalleyhealth.ca. We'll see you next week for more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Welcome to the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Stalo people. The Stalo are people of the river. I'm so thankful for the courage and resiliency of our ancestors who lived on this land since time immemorial. Each of us have gifts from the Creator, and our Creator has a plan and purpose to be fulfilled in our territory. As we embrace our traditional teachings, we can lead the next generation into the fullness of what our Creator designed.